Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is Flame, Ash, Time, side stories in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 1, Runaway. The woman's humming softly echoes off the walls of the hallway and cells. All the children know to be quiet. They keep their heads down, lest they draw the attention of their primary captor. Happy doesn't completely know who she is. Just that she works for the governor. Her heels click until she stops at the cell next to Happy's. Happy keeps her head down, watching from the corner of her small, dark enclosure. The woman wears a pretty wine-red dress that complements her peach-colored hair. The dim lights barely reveal the smile on the woman's face. She looks kind. She always looks kind when she comes down. But Happy knows she's a psycho. The second anything doesn't go her way, she screams and calls all the kids terrible names. Sometimes she has the guards hit them or she hits them herself. Aren't beautiful people supposed to be good? The woman has the same fake smile today, aimed directly at Zachary in the cell next door. Happy hears the boy whimpering. "Shhh. It's alright," the woman coos. "Just behave yourself, and I promise we'll make this as painless as possible, honey." The woman gestures with her hand, and the guards, dressed all in black, different from the enforcers Happy used to see on the news, grab Zach by the arms. His crying worsens when they pull him out, but he doesn't resist. Happy scarcely sees the bruises ringing around his wrists and forearms. There, honey," the woman's voice diminishes as they get further away. "No need to cry. It'll all be over quickly if you mind yourself." Happy doesn't see Zach again. Instead, they put a new boy in the cell 2 weeks later. At least she thinks it's been 2 weeks. What is this? Her mother slaps a report card onto Happy's bed after entering her room. Happy looks up from her book, face burning crimson from the embarrassment of being caught. "I found it crumpled in your backpack," her mother explains. "Did you really think we wouldn't get suspicious when we didn't see your grades after a while?" Happy says nothing as sweat beads on her forehead. Her mother sighs, "I know you're a smart girl. So why is your best grade a C? In art, of all things." Happy continues her silence. "Really? Nothing? Run out of excuses ever since trying to pull that ADHD crap on me. But stop pretending to be sick. It's a made-up disease hippie teachers use to excuse lazy students like you. You don't need placebo meds, they're too expensive, anyway. Just work harder. No excuses." Happy stares at her bare feet as her mother walks over to her TV set, console, and games. "I'm getting rid of this. If you don't care enough about your education to improve, we're not wasting any more money on this crap." "Cornelia!" Happy hears another grown-up woman's enraged shrill. "What in the goddess name is this place?" Happy glances up from her cell, though she's careful to keep her head down as much as possible. The new woman wears a pretty scarlet dress. Her chestnut hair is tied into a bun. Her bangs are nice and twirly, reaching down to her chest. Her features are sharp, well-defined. Brave. Happy thinks she must be someone important. Or at least smart. This new woman stomps through the hallway, heels rapping against the steel floor. "Oh, Mrs. Bladdid." Cornelia grins. "To what do I owe the honor?" "Stow it," the new woman seethes. "These children, what in hell are you doing to them?" "Oh right, I forgot," Cornelia shakes her head. "My apologies, Anselma. I'm sure this must be very difficult for you to see, given the newfound absence of your own daughter. Please rest assured, my experiments are in the best interest of Fairgus. Will Lambert believe as much when I tell him?" The new woman scowls. "What was that?" Cornelia smirks. "Our dear governor is already preoccupied with his obsession over Dusker's primitive culture. I doubt he'll have time to interfere with my harmless studies." "Harmless? You utter ugh," the new woman, Anselma, throws her arms up in frustration. She storms out the way she came, but not before making brief eye contact with Happy. Happy darts her eyes back to the floor before she can get in trouble. Anselma looks sad. Happy sighs sting with tears, just as her cheek burns with a faint red handprint. She hastily stuffs her 2 bags with some clothes, a few snacks, her toothbrush, her favorite book, and, of course, Mr. Bunny. She glares out her window as soon as she's finished. The late autumn sun has nearly set, despite it only being an hour after dinner. She knows it'll get cold quickly, but at least the darkness will make it harder for the enforcers to find her when her parents no doubt call them. I believe you dropped this, Aunt Selma smiles. She hands Mr. Bunny to Happy through the bars. Happy doesn't take the stuffed toy, simply keeping to herself in the corner of her room. I see, Aunt Selma's smile lessens. You must be terribly afraid. I'll just leave this here, then. She gently sets Mr. Bunny down on the floor of Happy's cell before Cornelia's guards shoo her away. In a week, it'll be 8 months to the day since Happy left her parents' house. The final colorful buds of this year's spring have bloomed into pretty greens on trees. At least, they have on what few trees there are around a Fairgus city that stinks of exhaust. She doesn't know which one this is. Karen? Gideon? Doesn't matter. Looks the same as Adrestia. Smells the same as Adrestia, too. Probably a little colder. With her lavender hoodie pulled up, her unkempt red hair bushes around her eyes. It's kind of annoying, especially since she can't get a haircut, but it's better than being noticed. She scans up and down her alleyway. Aluminum cans, torn flyers, and beer bottles decorate the narrow street. Graffiti and unidentifiable stains paint the dumpster and brick walls. At least no one who cares will go down this way. Happy meanders through the alley. She turns the corner, and a bag entraps her head as she's simultaneously lifted by her arms. 2 figures who reek of alcohol. One on the left, the other on the right. She kicks and twists, screaming through the bag. A fist to her stomach leaves her gasping for air. I told you we shoulda just hit her over the head, a raspy voice notes in frustration. Happy tries to muster up the air, the willpower, to continue fighting back. Damn it, the other gruff voice replies. Just hurry and choke ER out. Make sure we don't strangle ER. They won't pay us for dead fucks. Found that out the hard way. I have some unfortunate news, children. Cornelia begins with faux melancholy. Our governor has passed away at an untimely age, no thanks to the betrayal of some rather ferocious savages. And alas, our dear Aunt Selma has passed on alongside him. I know some of you cherished her visits. But have no fear, as your new governor, I promise to double my efforts in our special project. It's what they would want. Cornelia struts up to Happy's cell. My dear child, I know you were Aunt Selma's favorite. In her honor, I promise to move you up in line for the next procedure. How does that sound? Happy forces herself not to emote. She simply sits in the corner of her cell, letting the tightness in her chest grow as the reality of the threat sinks in. Overcome with conflicting emotions, honey. Cornelia sneers. I know the feeling. I miss her, too. Happy, and all the other children, press their faces against the bars when the guards run off in alarm. They only hear banging and grunting resound from around the distant corner in the dungeon as they can't see what happens. A voice Happy can only describe as exceedingly macho echoes just after the pounding stops. With a series of huffs, the voice taunts the presumably incapacitated guards. Ha! Looks like you just got ball-thoned. Ha ha. Ah, Yuri's right. I gotta work on my catchphrase. A young, bare-chested, and muscular man with the most hideous mullet Happy has ever seen sprints into the hallway. Goddess, he gasps. Yuri's right about this, too. That human trafficking shit is not joke. Y'all are just kids. Fucking sickos. Happy then notices his bloody knuckles and lack of a weapon. Did he fight those guards barehanded? The man swipes a blood-stained keycard through a device on the wall, and all of the cell doors unlock. He starts opening them as the other children do the same. Except Happy. Come on. This way, the young man calls to the children. We got people waiting for ya. He runs up to Happy's cell. The hell are you doing? Come on. We gotta go. They'll just punish us if more they catch us, Happy grimaces. Damn it, kid, the young man pulls open her cell door. We don't got time for that. He grabs Happy by the waist, throwing her over his shoulder. She doesn't bother resisting as he runs off with her. The young man guides the children through the hallways which are littered with the bodies of unconscious guards. Did he beat all of them up by himself? Before long, they meet up with some armed men and women who are dressed as what Happy's book would have described as ne'er-do-wells. Great, you got the kids, a woman nods. Not much further. These new grown-ups lead the children out of the facility. Happy's never seen the outside of this place before. She can't tell where they are. Only that it's night, it's cold, and tall pine trees surround them on all sides. There's a commandeered aerial transport waiting for them on a landing pad. Next to it, a young and well-dressed lavender-haired boy eagerly awaits with a smirk. "You're really in charge?" Happy asks in disbelief. The boy in the plum suit nods in his office chair. "Yes. You can call me Yuri. The brute who rescued you was Balthus." She's never heard of a boy being a crime lord before. "Where are we?" she asks. A valid question, Yuri responds in his high-pitched, boyish voice. "In my nightclub. Old Gareg Mach territory." It's one of the boring places she remembers her teacher talking about in social studies. "Anyway," he continues, "you'll be staying here, for the time being. No offense, but you don't look like you've got somewhere to go." He is not wrong. Not the talkative type, huh? I get it. Trauma and all that. Maybe we'll dig up a counselor somewhere. How is he only a child? Around her age, no less. In the meantime, he grins, you'll be bunking with someone who'll talk plenty for the both of you. He motions to a couple people she's elected to call his goons, bring in her roommate. Best they get to know each other now. Less than a minute passes until his goons return with a blonde girl the same age as Happy. Probably a little younger. She holds a partially eaten chocolate bar in her slightly pudgy hands. The candy stains the corner of her mouth. She wears a dress. It was a fancy dress. Now it's torn and disheveled. "This is Constance," Yuri announces. She doesn't have a home to go back to, either. He turns to the other girl. "Constance, this is your new roommate, Happy." Constance's eyes widen as she wipes her hand on her dress and bows to Happy. How rude of me." She swallows her bite of chocolate. "Pleased to make your acquaintance." Same, I guess," Happy mumbles. How delightful." Constance sniffles. "Why, you can be my new best friend." The blonde girl isn't fooling anyone with those tears in the corner of her eyes. Happy wonders what happened to her home. It must have been recent, whatever it was. "All right," Happy nods. "I'll be your friend. I guess. Just don't talk to me when I don't feel like it." "Oh, okay." Constance cheers. "You can share my chocolate if you want." Chapter 2, An Unspoken Past. Miss Bieltz, mid-30s, is a sympathetic soul, if not a little sour. Stout, stocky, and smart. Her talents in organizing data, leading conversations, and not asking questions have landed her a well-paying job as a front desk clerk at the Leicester Institute of Genetics and Mechanics, specifically a lab specializing in bioengineering. The laboratory's operational hours run from dusk till dawn. Miss Bieltz doesn't need to be as smart as she is to understand that these bigwigs work on some less than savory research. Still, she knows that keeping the peace isn't always an honorable prospect. Whatever the presumably imperial researchers are working on, she won't judge, and she won't press matters. Especially not with her only friend at the dem place. Said friend, Cassandra, swipes a keycard to unlock the security door leading into the facility's lobby. The door's locks click open as her friend enters and waves. Miss Bieltz waves back to her as she approaches the front desk. "Hey, Belle," the woman greets, routinely handing Bieltz her identification and cell phone. "You look well along," Bieltz grins. "Hopefully the research you're doing doesn't put you too at risk." Cassandra shakes her head with a smile, hand on her slightly round belly. "Not at all." Bieltz loves her friend dearly, but she hates the little prick of envy she experiences every night she sees her. Cass is the epitome of the woman who has it all. Aside from her borderline genius intelligence to be working at an institution like this, she also has a budding family. She often speaks fondly of her fiancé, Cleos, another researcher who exchanges polite pleasantries with Bieltz on a nightly basis when he comes to work. And of course, Her swelling tummy is a strong indicator of just how fast their relationship is progressing. It certainly doesn't help Bielt's jealousy that Cass is so beautiful, too. She never even realized that such a shade of light purple could be natural, and yet there it is, draping over Cass' shoulder in full, graceful waves. Bieltz returns her friend's ID after running it through their system and unlocking the next security door, all good to go. Cassandra maintains her smile as she takes back the card and slips it into a badge. I hope we're still on for tomorrow. Of course, Bieltz nods. Great. Cass beams. Cleos has been looking forward to hanging out with you for a long time. The woman then takes a lab coat from a nearby rack and drapes it over her orange sweater. She pins her badge to the coat and waves goodbye to Miss Bieltz as she disappears through the security door. Even after 3 years, Bieltz still has no idea what lies on the other side of that door. Or even what her friend actually does in that lab. Even so, they both understand enough not to discuss it during their off time. Potent rays from the morning sun filter in through the restaurant's windows, producing no shortage of glares. Flavors of coffee, butter, syrup, and grease all waft through the air as the waitress leads Bieltz and her companions to a booth. The three of them shuffle into the brown leather seats as they each take a menu. A television mounted on a nearby wall spouts some noise about the Blade Breakers clashing with the Knights of Syros near central Fodlan. Cassandra, naturally, glows in the morning light sun shimmering off her perfect purple hair and orange sundress. Her fiancé, by contrast, is clearly not a morning person or even particularly attractive. Miss Bieltz can only describe him as vampiric while he squirms under the glares of the sun and scrunches his nose from the sweet and bitter scents of brunch. She imagines he was the goth student in high school, given his inhumanly pale skin and penchant for wearing all black clothing. Though, his strangely prismatic earrings do interest Bieltz. The ebony, diamond-shaped earrings are made from an eerie metal and dangle loosely from his lobes. Even with his skeletal build, he at least fills out the label of tall, dark, and mysterious. Cleos runs a hand through his curly black hair as he finally adjusts himself. Forgive me. I'm not used to being up this early. Or late, in our case. It's fine, Cass playfully pinches his elbow with a grin. He smiles back as he looks to Bieltz. So, Cass has told me quite a bit about you. Oh really? Bieltz tilts her head. I hope she hasn't been saying anything too mean. Rubbish. Cleos shakes his head. By her fond visage, I can tell you truly are her greatest friend, Miss Bieltz. Who talks like that? Still, I suppose he's been kind enough so far. Cleos, please stop embarrassing me. Cassandra's cheeks redden. I think it's endearing that you care so strongly for each other, the man beams. His attitude is certainly a staunch contrast to his appearance. I guess Cass would know better than me. So, Cleos, Bieltz begins, I've been wanting to ask about your name. It doesn't strike me as regional. And you don't look like you're from Dusker or Brigid. Is it Albinine? Morphise? Dodden? Cleos shifts nervously, my parents were immigrants from a small country about which I highly doubt you'd be aware. It's clear he doesn't want to talk about this. I suppose I should be good and drop the matter. Well, if you can't discuss where you're from, maybe you can tell me about your interests. Naturally, Miss Bieltz, he goes back to grinning. I have a rather significant fondness for ancestral heritage. Specifically, the exploration of the continuation of genes. Most people only ever learn about the basics of alleles, dominant genes versus recessive genes, that sort of thing, but by nemesis, everything he says is academic. And that's a humorous tale as it involves how I became acquainted with Cassandra in the bioengineering department. Oh, dear, she doesn't need to hear about that. Cass interrupts. Miss Bieltz admittedly hasn't been paying much attention to their conversation. Not that she needs to, as Cleos seems content to drone on about this particular topic of interest. Alarms scream out while the faculty clear the institute. As she stands in the street with Cassandra and Cleos, Miss Bieltz quickly notices the smoke curling out the front doors of the building as well as the windows of the first floor, a fire caused by some sort of accident. Only a moment later, researchers in black hazmat suits hurriedly exit. Bieltz cocks her head at the peculiar, unnatural patterns of burns on their uniforms. What could cause burns like that, she asks her companions. Kleos shakes his head. The fools were probably misusing a. He stops himself, clearly biting his tongue from saying something he shouldn't, some sort of weapon they couldn't properly understand. That's what happens when the weapons department becomes too excitable in their studies. Cassandra furrows her brow. Come now, Belle. You know better than to ask those sorts of questions. Their conversation is interrupted by the sirens of Imperial Emergency Services. No doubt they're here to make sure the Empire's research isn't exposed. Then put out the fire. Kleos embraces Cass. Please tell me you didn't inhale any of that smoke. I'm fine, dear, she responds. If it makes you feel better, we can see the doctor tomorrow. Though, I'm sure the baby's fine, too. And you didn't see anything you weren't supposed to while we were escaping, either. Kleos presses. Cassandra hesitates to answer. Damn it, Cassandra, he whispers. Just, don't speak a word of it to anyone. We don't need the Empire catching wind that you may know more than you've been allotted. What could she have seen, Beelz wonders, that would make the Empire so jittery? It's only a little afternoon, yet for Miss Beelz, it may as well be the dead of night. At least, that's her sentiment as a knocking raps at her apartment door. She wraps a grey nightrobe around her undershirt and sweatpants as she answers the door. Cass stands before her cradling a quiet bundle. Her hair is disheveled as tears stain her cheeks. It's Kleos, she trembles. They arrested him. Come in, Beelz gestures and closes the door behind her. What the hell happened, she asks as she guides Cassandra and her newborn son to her couch. I accidentally let it slip to one of the other scientists that I saw the weapons department use something classified, Cass trembles. By Nemesis, Belle. I did this to him. They took him in for questioning. I don't think I'll see him again. It might not be that bad, Beelz tries to soothe her friend. They might just ask him a few questions then let him go. We both know that's not true, Cass' breath hitches. The investigators left me a voicemail since I wasn't home. They expect me at the enforcement office by this evening. Beelz shakes her head. If you just cooperate, it won't be that bad. I promise. Cass' lips quiver. I'm not that confident. But I can't run from them. I don't know what they'll do to our son. Belle, she looks up at her friend, this is a lot to force on you, but I want to leave him here. If they don't release us. If we don't come back. Cass, please. I'm begging you. Please look after for him, Belle. Please look after him. You're the only one I trust to do it. Miss Beelz pauses as the weight of the moment bludgeons her heart. Oh okay. I'll do it, she reassures her friend. Thank you, Cassandra faintly smiles as she stands and hugs her friend. I have all his things in my car. I'll bring them up. She hands Beelz the bundle in her arms. The small child sleeps soundly, despite the distress of his mother. Purple wispy hair contrasts his orange onesie, no doubt selected for him to match his mother's own inclination towards orange clothing. You don't have to go, Cass. You don't have to do this. I do. I really do, she asserts. Running will just make all of us a target for their investigations. Letting them take me is the only way to ensure that you two will be safe. That was 15 years ago to the day, Miss Beelz recalls as she stares out her window to the clouds. The anniversary of her friend's disappearance is sobering enough as it is. Yet, the recent scandal befalling Governor Hresvelg somehow makes it worse. He isn't even in charge of Lester, but she knows what the accusations against him will do to his family, should the Empire's investigations find him guilty. It's all she can think about with the news cycling through the controversy 24/7. She casts a glance to her son's room. The boy's door is open, as per her rules. He hunches over his desk, filling out paperwork. Apparently, dropping out of high school was more effort than he expected. Or at least she suspects he expected. The boy was never adept at sharing much with her, but that issue became worse once he hit adolescence. All she sees of him as he writes is the back of his dark gray hoodie and spiky purple hair. All done, he announces and stands. He then approaches her and hands her the paperwork, grinning through his black eye and bruised cheek. At this point, she stopped asking questions about why Het gets into so many fights. Bieltz takes the form, Ordelia County takes education, by which I mean institutional degrees, very seriously, Shay. So I'll ask one last time, are you sure about this? Yeah, the boy nods. I don't plan on sticking around Ordelia very long, anyway. What? Bieltz shoot him a look. Yeah, he scratches the back of his head, I got a job. It'll take me on the road. You're 15. I know. Damn it, Shay. Who the hell even hired you at your age? His name is Corbin. He does security, he explains. It's a traveling security firm that also hired a 15-year-old. Bieltz glares. Yeah. Crazy right, he commits to the lie. We both know that's bullshit. To be fair, I wasn't really asking, Shay retorts. Bieltz rubs the bridge of her nose. Do you have any idea who these people are? What's their endgame? Why are they willing to hire so young? Dunno, Shay shrugs. But they seem nice enough, and I have a knack for the kind of jobs they run. I swear to Nemesis, if you're getting into anything illegal. It's not illegal, Shay defends. I knew enough to at least check that out. Listen, I've already been packing my bags. I'm supposed to leave tonight. Tonight? Yep. For heaven's sake, don't get yourself killed, Bieltz scolds. And if it all goes to Alel, don't come back here expecting a handout. If this is your choice, you're damn well living with the consequences. I wouldn't expect anything else. Don't worry, I can handle it, Shay smirks as he heads back into his room, presumably to finish packing. I'll send money your way once I start making some. I know those doctor bills pile up, even if you won't admit it. Sure enough, his room is empty by the next morning. Not even so much as a goodbye. What the hell does that boy think he's doing? Miss Bieltz glowers to herself. Perhaps it would be best to let him run off. Admittedly, she's had no idea how to handle him for the past decade and a half. She still isn't sure whether or not she even has the right to call him her son. What would Cassandra think of all this? She'd probably just scold her for letting her only child get mixed up in all this rather than make a future for himself. But it's been painfully evident since he could walk that Bieltz has had no real control over him, her medical challenges notwithstanding. As she scans over his empty room and closet, she stumbles upon an old drawing. An imaginary friend he used to fawn over around his kindergarten years. She teased him about it while he was in middle school, but he insisted he'd already forgotten. She chuckles at the bizarre and crude likeness. Rather than invent a dinosaur or superhero or some other absurdity that a boy his age would, Shay created another child who was older than him. A figure that, eerily enough, resembled his late father, though with a tendency towards all white instead of all black. Perhaps he was compensating for the lack of real parents or friends. Nemesis knows she sure as hell didn't provide any of that. She scrutinizes the clumsily drawn pale figure. Damn it, Shay, you had better turn out all right. Chapter 3, A Household Divided. Felix stands on a balcony overlooking the upper levels of Fhirdiad's Capitol building. Pale clouds sheet the sky, tinting the world in a soft, gray glow. Columns of smoke still rise from the hard-fought battle to fully take Faerghus. Even with the healing magic, a staunch ache throbs in both his torso and boot. One hand grips the pommel of his vibro sword, the other clutches at his side. His fingers curl and dig into the coarse fabric of his navy blue uniform, still torn and stained brown-red from the wound inflicted by Glenn. It's all right, Felix. Glenn chuckles. The match is over. Again, Felix's high-pitched voice answers. The boy climbs to his feet, his brow sweaty and cheek bruised. He points the tip of his dull practice sword at his 18-year-old brother. Easy, Glenn furrows his brow. You're going to get yourself seriously hurt if you keep at this. I won't give up until I win. Resilience, Glenn smirks. An admirable trait. You'll do well in the Empire. You're going to make Dad proud. At that remark, Felix charges with a cry. Glenn instantly shifts from a casual, tired posture to the stance of a taut soldier. His practice sword clacks against Felix's in a movement the younger brother can barely follow. Glenn makes no counterattacks at first, simply letting Felix methodically slash at him. The older boy blocks every blow. After a few seconds, Felix's chest starts heaving as his breath rags from exertion. Still, he keeps up the attack. And yet, it's at this moment that Glenn counters. The side of his weapon slaps against Felix's hand mid-thrust, causing the younger boy to shift his jab. Glenn then jolts forward and slams his sword down into Felix's trapezius. Felix hollers as he collapses to the side. The boy curls onto his knees, clasping his shoulder as he seethes. Glenn stands above him, offering a hand. Felix merely swats it away as he stumbles back to his feet and shakily picks up his practice sword yet again. Glenn frowns. "Come on, Felix. It's over." "Not until I beat you," he sputters. Resilience can become over persistence quite easily, Glenn scolds. "You aren't beating anyone like that. Haven't you realized that the main reason I'm winning is because you do all the work? You wear yourself out for me. All I have to do is wait for an opening." "Duly noted," Felix curtly responds. "I'll factor that in this time." "That's enough," a stern voice barks. "Both of you." The brothers turn to see Rodrigue standing in the entryway to their training room. His arms are folded behind his back as he slowly paces into the chamber. "Glenn," their father smiles. "It's good of you to get a head start on Felix's training. We wouldn't want him to disappoint his future commanding officers. But we also wouldn't want to hurt him too badly during your sparring sessions, yes?" "Yes, father," Glenn nods. "I don't need coddling," Felix broods. Rodrigue simply laughs. "No, of course not. Yet every soldier needs to know his limits and when to rest. Felix, it's admirable that you're already so devoted to our family's legacy of exceptional military service, but you won't be impressing anyone if you push too hard to prove yourself." "Finally found you," Ingrid's voice interrupts Felix's thoughts. He turns to her with a biting glare. "What do you want?" "I just wanted to make sure you're okay," Ingrid answers. "Do you know how long I spent training to beat him?" Felix digs. Ingrid scowls at him. "Don't start this. Sylvain and I have been with you for almost every session of training you did behind your brother's back. I know how badly you wanted to win, but I don't know what else to tell you, Felix. I'm sorry you couldn't beat him, but that was no excuse to break off from your own charge. You had orders." "Ha," he dryly spits. "It always comes down to loyalty and orders, doesn't it?" "Oh, please. Your orders were different from blind loyalty, and you know it." "That's easy for you to say. It took you years to finally stand up to Glenn. And then you're the one who beats him. I can't even get a proper rematch because of what you did to his arm." "That's not fair," Ingrid admonishes. "You know how hard it was for me. How hard it was for me that every single adult in our lives told me over and over that my responsibility was to shut up, breed, and follow Glenn's lead. Pushing back against that put me at much greater risk than you. At least you got to brush it all off as the angsty younger brother. They all thought you were just being jealous. And, to be frank, on some level you were." "Jealous? Of that dog? How utterly insane," Felix folds his arms. "I'm not saying you were jealous of what he had as loyal member of the Empire," Ingrid shakes her head. "But you were definitely jealous of his skill. Of his reputation as the best swordsman in Faerghus." "Whatever," Felix complains, having run out of retorts. After a minute of palpable silence, Felix finally speaks up again. "All those years I spent training for this one victory, and I still couldn't beat him," he says. "Felix," Ingrid sighs. "I really am sorry you didn't win. I never wanted to diminish you or your efforts. But this is war. Someone had to defeat him. I don't need your coddling," he broods. "And yet again I'm catering to a man in my life who just shrugs me off," Ingrid notes to herself. "Would it have made you feel better if someone like Byleth bested him?" she asks. "So she could fell him in a single second and trivialize me even further? I don't think so. Damn it, Felix. There's always going to be someone stronger than you. It doesn't matter if it's Byleth, Nemesis, Geralt, Edelgard, the Death Knight, that mercenary who killed Catherine. The world is full of fighters, each stronger than the last. You can't get caught up on where you're stuck right now. If you call yourself a warrior, then use this loss to push yourself. Get stronger. Even if you can't ever have your rematch with Glenn, that doesn't mean you won't be able to surpass him. Just get over some of your pride, ask others for help, and you'll get stronger. Felix says nothing. He simply stares out over Fhirdiad. You know, Ingrid starts, I left Sylvain alone with Glenn. Last I checked, your brother was trying to convince him that Edelgard and Byleth were evil. I doubt he'll succeed. Sylvain is too stubborn to listen to anyone, Felix responds. At his remark, Ingrid breaks out cackling. She clenches her mildly sore gut after a few seconds of laughter as Felix glares at her. What? He scowls. Nothing, she giggles. I merely hope the irony of what you just said isn't lost on you. Felix's cheeks flush with realization as he continues glaring at her, whatever. Let's just go stop Sylvain before he makes himself look like an even more of an idiot in front of Glenn. Sounds good, Ingrid smiles. Chapter 4, A Sit Down. Well now, isn't this something? Geralt asks. He sits on a folding chair in the rec room finishing up a bottle of beer. Byleth sits to his left and Leonie to his right. The latter folds her arms, mustering a cross expression, though newfound guilt slightly deflates her energy. Contrastingly, Byleth rests completely neutrally, sizing up Geralt's intent and Leonie's mood. When neither woman answers him, Geralt continues, Eloise tells me you two are struggling to get along. What's the holdup? Byleth steadfastly maintains her silence. Leonie opens her mouth to answer, but merely grunts as words fail her. All right, I guess I'll start, Geralt sighs. I've been hearing that you two are jealous or something. Is that true? Leonie becomes indignant. Captain, it's bigger than that. Her place here complicates things. The dynamic here is all she stops herself, different. Geralt smirks, so you're afraid she's taking your place. Don't say it like that, Leonie scowls. And what about you, kid? Geralt turns to Byleth. The Ashen Empress says nothing. She merely stares at the floor with her brow slightly compressed. Kid. Geralt calls. Byleth darts her eyes towards him, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make this complicated. Geralt sighs again, okay, so that's what we're dealing with. You know, you get the same pouty look Citrai used to whenever something didn't go her way. Upon hearing Geralt compare Byleth to Citrai, Leonie tuts a scoff. What? Geralt looks to her. Nothing. Eloise was right, the old mercenary scratches his eyebrow. You're jealous something fierce? Remind me to kill him when we're done here, Leonie bluntly states. Easy there. Do you think I'm planning on throwing you in the trash or something? Geralt scolds. Leonie simply continues to brood, prompting Geralt to continue. Look, he says, we both know I've never been very good at talking out emotions and that sorta crap. But as your captain and her father it falls to me to deal with this. You say that like we're both children, Leonie counters. You're certainly both acting like children, Geralt flatly retorts. You're being petty. And you, he turns to Byleth, should learn to stand up for yourself. Don't throw out puppy dog eyes whenever someone walks over you. Sorry, Byleth apologizes. Damn it, Geralt rubs his temples in frustration. Listen, he turns to Leonie, I think Eloise told you this already, but you aren't getting replaced or some nonsense you keep telling yourself. Yeah, 'cause of course I was never your real daughter to begin with, she tersely observes. Goddess, I'm not qualified to do this. What I meant was that you're an invaluable member of the Blade Breakers, and you've been my protege for too long for me to abandon you. Oh really? Leonie asks sarcastically. I'm just as valuable as a fucking demigod. Cool it, kid, Geralt shakes his head. Byleth's place is by Edelgard's side when this is done. I'd love to have her in the Blade Breakers, but a life of fighting isn't something a parent can push on their child. Oh yeah, because she's totally the government type, Leonie shrugs. What's she gonna do, by Edelgard's side, when the war is over, huh? Punch politicians in corpus. You mean you don't know? Geez, I thought it was obvious to everyone. Even me, Geralt huffs. Hey, Byleth. Did you give? Geralt and Leonie turn to see Byleth's seat absent. She's several feet away petting a stray cat on the windowsill. Byleth, Geralt calls. She turns to him with a start. Did you give Edelgard the ring yet? Byleth shakes her head as she scratches the cat's chin. No. What are you waiting for? Just go for it when you get a chance, he scolds. Anyway, like I was saying, he looks back to Leonie, her place is with Edelgard, not us mercs. Wait, I don't get it, Leonie states. What does a ring have to do with Edelgard? A ring. You know, like a proposal. I don't see what Edelgard getting engaged has to do with the three of us, Leonie notes. Son of a bitch. What? Byleth is going to get engaged to Edelgard, Geralt dryly answers. Oh, Leonie's eyes widen with realization. What? Why? What do you mean why? Geralt gawks. It's just something people do. They get engaged. I had no idea. Not that there's anything wrong with it, of course. Goddess, you can be thick sometimes. Anyway, my point is that she isn't going to be a blade breaker when this is all over because she's going to be the future empress. She's not some asset I'm replacing you with. She's not stealing your hard-earned place among our ranks. She's just my daughter, pure and simple. And even then, we probably won't get to see each other that often when this is all over. I just can't see her as an empress, Leonie ponders. Kid, please tell me you see my point, Geralt crosses his arms. I guess, Leonie rubs her arm. I just put a lot of hard work into what I do. Becoming your apprentice was the proudest moment of my life. I just don't like feeling as though someone's trivializing that. I've spent my whole life being belittled by other mercs for my efforts. Yeah well, you should know by now that the blade breakers aren't like that. We're all happy to have you here. No one is trivializing you. Especially not her, Geralt points to Byleth. The Ashen Empress is entranced by the now three cats at the window, each yowling for attention. I suppose I see your point, Leonie reluctantly admits. I'm not going to tell you to think of her as a sister like Eloise suggested, Geralt explains. But I am going to tell you that no matter what, you're both important to me. I know I'm not very good at saying those sorts of things, but it's true. Leonie lets out a long sigh. Hey, Byleth, she calls, garnering the Blunet's attention. I'm sorry I said those things to you. You have a right to be with your dad. I was just scared that you were going to push me to the side. Byleth nods as she walks back up to the mercenaries. Honestly, you're better at being his daughter than I am. I just hit things. Well, we're going to change that, Geralt responds. Somehow. I'm still figuring out how to do this. I like fishing, Byleth slowly admits. Geralt hums a smirk. We can work with that. Can't we, Leonie? Sure, I guess, Leonie nods. Chapter 5, Adjusting to a New Cause. The Burgleys cafeteria buzzes with hungry revolutionaries. Each and every soldier chatter vigorously as they line up at the serving counter, take their seats, and gorge away at the mediocre dinner being served. Randolph sits alone at the end of a table, deliberately distancing himself from the crowds. He stares at his metallic tray. Lumpy mashed potatoes, peas, and arundel steak slathered in brown gravy are haphazardly slopped onto the tray which, while clean, is already covered in countless scratches from use. The rabble of the soldiers disorients him as he looks up and scans around. Just a day ago, the people filling this room were Imperial soldiers. Enforcers who were under his own command gloated, teased, and laughed their hearts out in this room. How many of them were now dead? How many more imprisoned? Only a select few of them could be trusted enough to defect entirely, and they, much like himself, have all taken to dissociating themselves from the suspicious glares of the revolutionaries. Edelgard may be open-minded, but many of these rebels certainly aren't. Goddess, you look so beaten down, Flesh calls to him as she sits beside him with her own tray. Kman, at least try to make some new friends. Randolph dryly chuckles, that'll be easier in time. Most of these people don't trust me. And frankly, I don't trust them. Flesh shakes her head, what about your old buddies who switched sides with you? I wasn't really in command long enough to get to know any of them personally, Randolph explains. Always the shy nerd, Flesh teases. When Randolph doesn't respond, she apologizes, sorry, that was insensitive. Can I ask you something? Randolph turns to her. Sure. How did you feel when General Burgleys was, you know? Randolph probes. Honestly. Flesh hesitates. I didn't really care all that much. Last I checked, neither of us were close to him. We only saw him at formal family gatherings. Why? Randolph sighs, you're right. I was never particularly close with that man, but still. There was a charm about him. He led his men with confidence, and they all adored him. And, in spite of not knowing him well, he treated me like family for the brief time I served under him. Randolph. This whole defeat has left me feeling hollow, the man continues. I surrendered for the sake of my men, but was that truly the right call? Ah well, I suppose it's too late. The Empire doesn't tolerate traitors. Randolph, I know you probably won't believe it much right now, but yes. You did make the right call. I get that Leopold was charismatic and a good leader, but he did terrible things, too. And the Empire has much worse people than him left in positions of command. Ah, a forceful feminine voice beckons. You're the new blood, meaning I am no longer the most recent addition to Miss Hresvelg's forces. The woman called Ladislava takes her seat across from Flesh and Randolph. Why you? Randolph stammers. I recognize you. You're the Scarlet Soldier. Was the Scarlet Soldier, Ladislava tuts. Now I'm just another rebel. Besides, Miss Hresvelg has me beaten in the Scarlet Department methinks. Waldemar told me you joined up with the rebels, but I didn't want to believe it at the time, Randolph scrunches his brow. And now what do you believe? Ladislava probes with a smirk. I am not certain. Do you really suppose turning on everything we believed in was the right decision? Who says we're turning on our beliefs? Ladislava asks solemnly. I think I can understand your hesitation. I heard that General Burgleys was highly adored in the Empire. But my first prominent command was under Count Varley. Not a day goes by that I'm not grateful I decided to serve under Miss Hresvelg instead. She and her allies have done nothing but treat me like an equal. Heh. I won't deny that many of the higher-ranking rebels are surprisingly sociable. Still, doesn't it bother you how most of them look at us? We betrayed our own people for a group that hates us. Ladislava considers her words for a moment. Mr. Burgleys, you were raised in a military family. Shouldn't you know by now that these things don't come easy? Well yes, but we will have to earn their trust. I have been learning quite a bit about the atrocities the Empire has committed behind our backs. Many of them have good cause to hate Imperials, Ladislava explains. Including the crimes done by the old Count. Randolph balks. I overheard General Burgleys complain about Count Varley before, but was he really that bad? Ladislava nods, yes. He never treated my company with respect. And from what I understand, he was highly abusive towards one of the most beloved members of the revolutionaries, his own daughter. The man shakes his head. I had no idea that his daughter was amongst the rebels. Look to your sister, Ladislava instructs. Look to many of the leading revolutionaries around here. Quite a few of them are the heirs to assorted politicians. Hresvelg, Varley, Burgleys, Oaks, Hevering, Ordelia, Galatea, the list goes on. That isn't an accident, Mr. Burgleys. Ladislava's right, Flesh affirms. We all joined this cause because we saw what kind of mess our families were perpetuating. Mr. Burgleys, Ladislava pointedly states, everything Miss Hresvelg has said about the Empire is true. They've shown me the evidence firsthand. I've seen the plans of Agir's scheme against the late Governor Hresvelg. I've seen the true identity of Cornelia Arnhem. Governor Arnhem. Randolph cocks his head. Yes, Ladislava nods. The real Cornelia has been dead for over 2 decades, at least. The one they have in custody is a pale witch named Cleobulus who looks unnaturally young for someone of Arnhem's age. Miss Hresvelg is right, several politicians in positions of command aren't human. All the other politicians sold out their humanity to stay in the good graces of these so-called Agarthans. Varley even told me himself the virtues they teach us in the military are nothing more than pretty words to keep us in line. Randolph rests his hands in his head, but General Burghley's was so personable. He was always so devoted to keeping the peace. Could he really have knowingly served under such vermin? Flesh sighs, maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. Personally, I think he was too high-ranking not to have at least been aware of what the others were doing, even if he didn't do anything bad himself. And that's certainly not how Petra sees his actions if you ever talk to her. Right. The Brigid Princess, Randolph notes. Flesh continues, Leopold killed her dad and a bunch of other people from her country. I'm sure Nemesis told him some shit about how he was protecting the peace. Language, Randolph scolds. Bite me, Flesh retorts. At this, Ladislava snickers, as vulgar as she is, you two are quite humorous. I'm glad you were able to reunite, even if it wasn't under ideal conditions. I suppose, Randolph admits. I'm sure you're right. It's just going to take me time to adjust. Miss Goneril, Randolph calls, stopping Hilda on her way out of House Burghley's bar. I spent quite a while looking. Rondi. Hilda's flushed face beams. Randy Savage. Macho Ma-on. How are you doing? Playing nice with everyone. Are you inebriated? Randolph furrows his brow. Jews a little post-battle celebration, Hilda explains. I'm only a little bit buzzed. Don't tell Claude. He'll never let me end the hear of it. Oh of course, Randolph nods. Anyway, I wanted to express my gratitude at the wisdom you showed me. It has been extraordinarily difficult to betray the Empire, but I believe I made the right call. If it weren't for you, I may never have heeded my sister's words. Ah, Randy. That's so nice, Hilda closes her eyes. Fucking damn it, she chokes as her eyes start dampening. Are you alright, Miss Goneril? Randolph lurches forward a bit in concern. Now you've got me thinking about Holst, she slurs. He's an idiot, and I wish he was as nice as you. I miss him. I don't know how to respond to that, Miss Goneril, Randolph replies. Oh, I know, she grins. You could write him a letter for me. How about I just take you to Claude so you can rest for the night? Okay, she immediately leans into him for support. Just make sure he doesn't tell Claude. No, Claude is the one I'm taking, never mind, Randolph sighs as he helps Hilda stumble along to her and Claude's quarters. Chapter 6, Measuring Loyalty. Hey, merci. Monica beams as she enters the medical tent. How are you feeling? Keeping busy, the doctor sighs. Mercedes finishes organizing some paperwork left over from the recent battle. After she files the rest of it away, she stands from her folding chair and faintly smiles at Monica. It's always nice to catch a break with you, Money. Every time we get new recruits, that's more to keep track of. And that's to say nothing of all the long-term injuries some of our people sustain with every battle. I imagine it's a lot of hard work, Monica states. It is, Mercedes nods, but it keeps my mind off of what happened with Emil. Anyway, did you want to go for a walk? Monica smiles, that sounds lovely. I admit, even I could use a break from running errands for Miss Edelgard. Miss Edelgard, the doctor teases. She hums a chuckle, at least you're technically using her first name now. The pair of women stroll through the camp, slowly meandering towards the rec tent. The remaining brown leaves fall from the trees, blanketing the ground of their forest locale as their boots crunch with each step. This is nice, isn't it? Mercedes coos. Being in nature, I mean. It's so rare to breathe in fresh air when you live in the city. Yeah, I know what you mean, Oh, there you are, Monica, a sinister voice beckons. The women turn to see Hubert towering behind them. Oh, Hubert. Mercedes amicably answers with a sincere smile. It's nice to see you again. Monica looks over the dark fellow warily, is there something you needed? Hubert politely bows, Lady Edelgard sent me to request an update on your report. The one regarding the supply line of ammunition? Though you need not fear. I simply took the liberty of handling it myself. Monica glowers at him. You didn't need to do that, Hubert. I had it well underway. Did you? Hubert subtly sneers. I assumed you had forgotten by now. I never forget, Hubert, Monica scolds. Miss Edelgard values me for perfect memory. Well, if it wasn't absent-mindedness, then what was it? He scrutinizes. We are at war. For Lady Edelgard's sake, we cannot afford to dilly-dally. I was simply taking a break, the redhead defends. Let's not do this right now, Mercedes sheepishly intervenes. Very well, Hubert backs off. Just try to be more diligent in the future. The nerve of that girl, Hubert scoffs. He and Ferdinand share tea and coffee in their private tent late into the evening. The Dark Bishop continues, she calls herself a servant of Lady Edelgard, and yet she drags her feet when accomplishing her assigned tasks. Ferdinand tuts, I'll admit there aren't many who are as diligent as yourself, but perhaps this shouldn't be a competition. Edelgard must clearly value Miss Oakes for her to have been a trusted assistant for this long. Having such a position may well have bred complacency within her, Hubert observes. Perhaps I should remind her of what a true servant of the Hresvelg name is capable. Please do not poison her, Ferdinand half-japs. Ah, Linhard, Hubert greets as he enters one of the camp's many work tents early into the morning. The green-haired genius startles from a doze. Oh, Harold. Did you need something? Hubert, he coldly retorts. And I am here to help you calibrate Lady Edelgard's power armor for the morning. I am well aware that it requires regular maintenance. You've got that right, Linhard sighs. She uses that armor like a dog uses a chew toy. Perhaps you'd care to rephrase that. Hubert vaguely threatens. Anyway, you don't have to bother, the mechanic ignores him. Monica already helped me take care of it this morning. Apparently, she woke up even earlier than normal to get some extra work done. Miss Oakes, Hubert's voice drips with ice as he interrupts her while she eats a bagel. Mr. Vestra, she plainly answers. What is the meaning of this? The meaning of breakfast. Don't play coy, he glares. You know damn well that it was my responsibility to help Hevering with Lady Edelgard's armor this morning. Oh, sorry, she feigns. It took you so long getting it done, I assumed you weren't feeling well today. So I went ahead and did it. Know this, Oakes, he leans forward. I will not be made a mockery by you. The Vestra household has proudly served the Hresvelgs for a millennium. I promise you, you have not seen the depth of my devotion. Really? Monica shakes her head, then I must have my information wrong. I was under the impression that your father aided in the insurrection of the Seven? That doesn't seem very devoted to me. At this, Hubert says nothing. He merely walks out of the dining tent with a freezing aura. Don't you think that was a bit mean-spirited? Mercedes asks. Come on, Merci, the redhead retorts as they both do their own respective paperwork. You saw how he treated me earlier. He was asking for it. What about turning the other cheek? The doctor furrows her brow. Turning the other cheek is for the religious, Monica bluntly states. Mercedes shakes her head. Regardless, I don't think it's healthy for you to fuel that little feud of yours. I can't just let him win, Merci. Monica whines. I've been working for Miss Edelgard for years. I can't let some creepy new guy from the Empire show me up. But the two of them were childhood friends, Mercedes mentions. That's besides the point. I have reputation to maintain. Perhaps this is really a blessing, the doctor offers with a smile. With him also serving Edelgard, you won't have to worry about her so much. It'll give you more time to focus on other things. But I live for this cause, Merci. I'm working for a legend. For history in the making. I won't be beaten. Oh dear, Mercedes frowns. This won't end well. Monica approaches Edelgard's makeshift field office bearing the scouting report. As she draws near, she spots Hubert pacing closer to her tent, holding what appears to be a similar report. She scowls and quickens her stride. Hubert catches sight of her and does the same. The two nearly shove each other aside as they slip past the entry flap in Edelgard's tent. The Flame Emperor startles as she glances up at the both of them. Is something the matter? She asks in alarm. I have. There is. Both Monica and Hubert speak at the same time. One at a time, Edelgard scolds. Hubert, you first. Hubert smirks as he approaches Edelgard's desk and rests his file down. This is the latest scout report. Enver is doubling down its defenses. Our plan should work as initially proposed so long as the Empire doesn't deviate from its expected pattern of behavior. Thank you, Hubert. Now Monica, what do you have for me? Edelgard urges her. The redhead hesitantly walks forward and lays down her file. Our field report suggests Nemesis forces are on our projected track. The stratagem you devised should be more than sufficient to take them down. That is exactly what Hubert just said, only phrased differently. Edelgard raises an eyebrow. She quickly schemes through both files before continuing. Is there a reason you both brought me the same report? Miss Edelgard, I would like to posit that I brought you the report first. Hubert simply has longer legs than me. Lady Edelgard, Miss Oakes has been stirring up trouble ever since I pointed out her lack of expediency. I dare say she has a personal vendetta against me. Edelgard sighs and rubs her face. I already know what this is about. You do? Monica asks. Yes, Mercedes informed me. Monica. Hubert. I appreciate your devotion to my cause. You have both been a considerable help to me. Monica, you have helped me organize my cause since its very earliest days. You are irreplaceable. Hubert, you are my oldest friend and have already been instrumental in seeing that my family has justice. Hubert bows, your words do us a great honor, Lady Edelgard. Don't worry, Miss Edelgard. I'll do everything I can and then some. I won't let you down. Edelgard shakes her head. Somehow, I can't help but feel that you have both missed my point. I simply mean that I value you both as dear friends and allies. Equally. I would rather you two not waste resources or energy on some asinine competition. Simply split your duties. Monica slightly frowns, but, Miss Edelgard, for the goddess' sake, that is an order. The Flame Emperor folds her arms. Understood, Lady Edelgard. Hubert bows again. Now, Edelgard asserts, you two will put your differences behind you. I don't wish to hear anyone else complaining about your behavior. Well, that was disastrous, Monica sighs. The pair of them defeatedly walk away from Edelgard's tent, avoiding the gazes of the soldiers surrounding them. Humph. It could have been worse, Hubert retorts. How? Miss Edelgard was mad at us. What's worse than that? I will not dignify that with a response. Listen, Hubert, Monica begins, I suppose your devotion to Miss Edelgard doesn't make you all bad. As long as we stay out of each other's way, I think we can make this work. I agree to some extent, Hubert reluctantly admits. Just know that, should you ever disappoint or fail Lady Edelgard, I will not hesitate to reproach you. Or worse as is necessary, of course. Ha, Monica dryly bites. The same goes to you. Chapter 7, Engagement. All right, Edie. All right, Professor. Dorothea beams as she leads the two women by the hands into Enver Palace's venue for formal political gatherings. The Flame Emperor wears a form-fitting full-length burgundy gown with white gloves, while Byleth dons a low-cut black dress with sleeves. Get ready for an engagement/bachelorette party worthy of the future Emperor and Empress. The hall is, needless to say, grand. As expected, its vast breadth allows for several tables decked out with party favors, carnations, and pristine scarlet cloths. There is an area with a band near a stage that Edelgard can only assume Dorothea has dedicated for dancing. The floors are a laminated hardwood, one of the only rooms in the palace that isn't just cold steel. Gold and crimson streamers hang from the ceiling, along with an audacious congratulations banner. Wrapped gifts of all sizes rest on a long table near the back. The guests present a wide array of revolutionaries, including the Corps Black Eagles, the Golden Deer, the Blade Breakers, and their friends from Faerghus, barring Felix. This is a lot of people, Byleth simply remarks. Dorothea, Edelgard begins, I must say you certainly went, above and beyond. The songstress smirks as she places her hands on her hips, I told you we were going to throw you a party. That you did, Edelgard softly smiles. I simply never expected one on this scale. Listen, Edie, this was as modest as I could make it. Just be glad there aren't a bunch of stuffy politicians, paparazzi, and corpus poisoning the atmosphere. They'd spend the whole night trying to impress you for some two-faced gain. Edelgard gives her friend a hug. I apologize if I sound as though I'm ungrateful. I am simply caught off guard. Regardless, thank you, Dorothea. Don't thank me yet, the songstress winks. I still have a surprise for you that should get here in a short while. Edelgard. Byleth. Ingrid interrupts, dressed in a formal teal dress suit and accompanied by Sylvain. I was waiting for Dorothea to be done talking to you, but suddenly I sensed that you needed me to save you. Oh hush. Dorothea crosses her arms. I appreciate the sentiment, Edelgard grins, but you did just bring us Sylvain. Hey, the Gautier retorts. I just came by to politely congratulate you two. Speaking of, sorry Felix didn't show up. He's committed to his training regimen. Byleth cocks her head. He thought this was boring, didn't he? Sylvain sheepishly rubs the back of his head. Well, yeah. Hey. Bernadetta cheeps up from a nearby table. How come Felix gets to skip and I don't? Because Felix is rude. Dorothea calls back with a frown. As they bicker, Mercedes and Monica approach the couple, garbed in beige and cherry red dresses respectively. Mercedes leads the pair as she greets the future emperor with an embrace. Edelgard. I know I haven't said it before, so now is the perfect time. I'm so proud of you. Not just for defeating Nemesis and making your dreams come true, but for finding someone as wonderful as the professor. I'm glad you've finally made peace with finding your own happiness. Edelgard blushes as she gives a bit of a scowl. I appreciate your kind words, though I'd rather you not phrase it in such an embarrassing manner. The doctor giggles as she nudges Monica forward. Edelgard's assistant gives a shallow bow to the royal couple as she stammers, "See, congratulations to the both of you. I have no doubt that you'll lead Fodlan into a brighter future." Thank you, Monica, Byleth nods. It means a lot to hear you say that. And please, you don't have to bow. But Byleth is right, Edelgard adds. I know I've said it before, but you don't need to be so formal with us. That won't do, Monica shakes her head. You two are going to rule Fodlan from now on. I have to show my proper respects. That won't be necessary, Edelgard chuckles, but something tells me you will continue to do as you feel. Lady Edelgard. Hubert interposes as he and Ferdinand draw upon them in matching suits. I do hope Miss Oakes is not giving you too much trouble. Be kind, Hubert, Ferdinand elbows him. Regardless, Edelgard, I do hope you'll consider making me the best man at your wedding. I believe it would do our houses some good in the public eye as it will be seen as an act of reconciliation between our families. Edelgard bucks at him with wide eyes. I appreciate the thought, Ferdinand, but I believe our efforts together in council will do more than enough to bury the hatchet. Then may I ask who your best man and maid of honor will be? Edelgard and Byleth exchange looks as the Blunet answers, we haven't really figured that part out yet. We don't even know if there'll be a best man or just two maids of honor. Did I hear maid of honor? Dorothea returns. Nothing is decided, Edelgard sighs. Besides, mine will likely be Mercedes as I have known her the longest. Dorothea glowers, fair, but boo. An instrumental piece croons out from the debonair band. Edelgard tolerates Ferdinand's flaring as he exuberantly sways with her across the dance floor. Byleth looks on with a mix of amusement and concern, distracting her from her own dance partner. Said partner, Geralt, interrupts her befuddlement, you know, I'm glad you actually proposed to her. I was scared that you were gonna put it off for years. Still, is there a reason why I didn't find out until after the war? Byleth blushes. The old mercenary chortles, kid, you've got to learn how to tell people things. I swear, we only find out this stuff about you because of circumstance. Sorry. Geralt sighs, it's fine, I guess. He then changes the topic, it's been a while since I've had to dance to something fancy like this. Almost forgot how. I'm impressed you know how to dance in the first place, Byleth plainly states. Ouch, Geralt says. I'll have you know I've been around a while. I've picked up a move or two. Mostly, because your mother made me. As the music concludes its current piece, the guests applaud the band. Geralt gives Byleth a nod with a smile as they separate. She returns to Edelgard, who breathes a sigh of relief. I was afraid Ferdinand would never stop bragging and proposing new policies, the Flame Emperor sighs. You seemed like you were having fun to me, Byleth jests. Yes, a bit I suppose, Edelgard admits. Now then, it's been too long since we've had a proper dance, if I recall. Just as the music restarts, a heel obnoxiously clicks against the floor, disrupting the melody. All eyes turn with shock. Some are ecstatic, some are awed, and some still are confused. A white fur coat somehow flails with an indoor draft of wind. A second heel clacks on the hardwood surface. The figure of attention removes her sunglasses and hands them to an attendant along with her coat, leaving her in a revealing black dress with orange accents. Voices murmur in recognition of the retired celebrity. Mercedes stammers out, "Is that Professor Casagrande?" Surprise! Dorothea proudly belts out. "Thank you for inviting me, Dorothea." "Oh, Edelgard, dear." Manuela calls as she sashays towards the Flame Emperor. "It's been ages. I can't believe you are going to be the next emperor. You really grew up." Manuela hugs her and politely kisses both cheeks as Edelgard balks. "I'm surprised to see you, Manuela." "Ha! When Dorothea invited me, I knew I couldn't miss this. You've always been one of my favorite students. I was intrigued by your stage presence and knack for acting, but you never seemed interested in the theater. Though in hindsight, it's obvious why." Edelgard smiles, "I'm glad to see you again, as well." Manuela turns to Byleth, "And you must be the blushing bride-to-be. Aren't you adorable? Are you all right, dear? You look as though you've seen a ghost." Manuela, Byleth pales as several overwhelming nostalgic feelings wash over her. "Oh, please dear," the retired diva grins, "no need to be so awestruck. You're famous now, too. Though you seem a mite familiar." Edelgard interjects with an excuse, "Byleth used to be a history professor at UAH. Technically, you were co-workers for a little while." Manuela's eyes widen as she jolts, "That's right. You were the professor who disappeared after being targeted for Imperial questioning. So you were really the Ashen Demon the whole time, huh?" "We prefer the term Ashen Empress," Edelgard corrects while Byleth simply stares. Manuela chuckles, "Of course. Leave it to Edelgard to fall in love with a dark and mysterious superhero. She's just a real-life film protagonist, isn't she? Who do you think they'll cast as her in the biopic?" Edelgard flushes, "It's a bit early to be speaking of such things." "Nonsense!" Dorothea interrupts. "Trust me, people will be vying for movie rights about you in no time." "Regardless," Edelgard diverts, "it's good to see you are well. Truth be told, I was a bit worried for the well-being of all our old acquaintances from uni when I started my war." Manuela tuts, "Please. It'll take more than some Imperial thugs to kill a star of Mittelfrank." Edelgard shakes her head, "Isn't that a little simplistic? Inber was ground zero for the final battle." Even so, Manuela holds her chin high, nothing can stop Manuela Casagrande from making a comeback. Dorothea leans in, "Does that mean you're planning on coming out of retirement?" "Only for a bit, so long as I get to perform at the royal wedding," Manuela smirks. "And maybe to play myself in Edelgard's biopic. I'll be her sagely mentor figure during her formative university years. I'll need to come up with an inspired sensei line, however. Something about power and responsibility." When she feels Edelgard's glare, she giggles, "Oh, I'm just teasing about that last bit. Now then, where's the booze?" Before that, Dorothea stops her. "Won't you sing for us? It's been such a long time since I've heard your voice in person." Manuela cocks her head, "Well, I'm not warmed up. And I don't know if I'll sound like I used to, but why not? Just give me a few minutes to prepare." "Thank you, Manuela. You're the best." "I'll say this much for Dorothea," Edelgard asserts as she helps Byleth out of her dress for the night, "she certainly turned this evening into an event. She's just excited that we were doing something publicly romantic." Byleth tries to hold herself still as Edelgard fusses with her zipper. We both have a tendency to be a bit reserved, emotionally speaking. I think it's something of a treat for her. We're reserved only in public, Edelgard notes. I hold no reservations in private, as you well know. Is that a threat? Byleth teases as her dress slips loose. I always get what I want, the Flame Emperor smirks. It's as the naysayers claim, I'm out to dominate the world. And my world is right here. Fuck, Byleth shivers as Edelgard shoves her face first onto their bed. Check the description for the links to the author.